Let's bring this on screen. Now, it's in Ukrainian, so we'll need to translate this for you. So the headline on this is Hate Speech Digest of Russian Propagandists. And this is on the Ukrainian National Security and Defense Council Disinformation Center website. So they have released several slides talking about Russian propagandists' disinformation that's been published during the period 23rd of June to the 4th of July 2023. So let's just have a look at a couple of these slides. So this is the kind of format of them. So at the top we have a quote from, it's a quotation from the Russian public broadcasting's premier talking head, Vladimir Solovyov. Thanks to Alex for translating some of this, by the way. So that's at the top. We've got a quote from him. Then underneath, we've got the main targets of the Russian propaganda quote, as they're describing it. And then beneath that, we've got 4 bullet points, which is the Ukrainian translation of what the Russian quote is saying. And beneath that, we have the amplifiers of the Russian narratives, according to the Ukrainians. And on this particular graphic, Patrick, it seems to be you and Kim.com that they're focusing on. So let's look at the next one. And you can see that Zelensky is on the receiving end of the what they're describing as disinformation in this case. And in this case, it's you and who else?
This is Shay Bose, is an Irish journalist who
we've already mentioned
lives and works in Moscow. And
yes.
Reports with RT.
Okay. And then this one, we've got you and Kim.com again. And so this one is saying, the quotation at the top that is from Solovyov is saying that the West is out to destroy all Slavs, not just Ukrainians. That Ukrainians have been persuaded to destroy their country from the inside, and that there'll be a role for the Ukrainians that are involved in that afterwards, whereas actually the West only wants them to die in the war, and so on. And then the 3 icons beneath, of course, are the Ukrainian flag, and then we've got the EU flag, and then we've got the NATO flag, and the bullet points are that the quote is saying effectively that Ukraine is a US NATO puppet, that the war in Ukraine is a profitable affair, and that the West is using Ukraine to achieve its own aims. And of course,
all true.
We've got the quotes at the bottom, and the quote that they've got at the bottom there from you, Patrick, seems to be this one that you quoted on, or at least you wrote on Twitter on the 8th of July.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see if they translate this accurately, but I was riffing off of Ursula von der Leyen and so they're accusing me of amplifying Russian talking points. I have no idea who Mr. Solotunov is. I suppose he's with one of the major Russian mainstream broadcasters.
That's right. Yeah.
I don't follow his work and I don't read Russian. I have my own ideas. So I saw this tweet by Ursula von der Leyen on July 8th, and I thought, that's a bit hypocritical. Let me pastiche that. Let me do some satire and a little bit of, incisive messaging here. So I'm saying she's saying 500 days of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, 500 days of brave Ukrainian resistance, 500 days of steadfast European support for Ukraine. We will stand with Ukraine as long as it takes. So that's Ursula von der Leyen's EU party line. I'm saying 500 days of bankrupting and deindustrialization of Europe, 500 days of a losing proxy war against Russia, a complete failure, 500 days of record profits for the Western military-industrial complex, 500 days and 250,000 dead Ukrainian soldiers, all for the US, EU, and NATO's vanity. So,
Alex's translation of the Ukrainian is pretty close to that. So
accurate.
They did.
So the first 3 of my bullet points, you could say, are factual, and they are. The second one is the fourth one's also factual. I've added my opinion. I believe this is about the geopolitical vanity of a dying empire. Am I entitled to my opinion? So if you have any opinions that veer from the NATO party line, you are amplifying automatically, ergo, according to the Ukrainian ministry there, you're amplifying Russian disinformation.
Yes.
And so therefore you're a Russian propagandist.
That's right.
Even though I'm not in contact with any of these Russians. So I have my own thoughts and ideas. I tweet too much, Mike. I have too many tweets per day. I probably tweet 50 times a day in terms of retweets and tweets. So there's a lot of stuff on my Twitter feed. They've cherry-picked this, and they say that somehow this is Russian disinformation. These exact opinions that I have are identical to the opinions of hundreds of other journalists and pundits on the internet. So it's completely disingenuous for them to cherry pick this. But it's an old trope. It's an old trope. They're trying to say, oh, this is a plot going on here. Kim.com is another good example. He's completely 100% on social media, always waxing, always commenting every single day. He's on Twitter Spaces. He's doing his own sort of interviews and stuff like that. So, is he coordinating with the Russians? I highly doubt it.
Yeah,
I highly doubt it. So that's an amazing thing. So, at the end of the day, Mike, if you're going to say it's propaganda, it's really American propaganda. Because I grew up watching the mainstream media. I learned all of my communication and information tricks from the U.S. and international corporate mainstream media. So that's my training school. So all I've done is twist it and turn it back at them. That's all.
Okay, so let's bring Che Bose back on screen again.
Well, we're just going to say that was the tweet we showed earlier when we read in the previous segment there. So why is this interesting, Mike? Why is this important too? Well, it just so happens, as the Ukrainian intelligence and whatever, I'm not sure what department that was in Ukraine, but it was the Ministry of Intelligence and Information or something like that, maybe.
Well,
anyway, while they're doing that, okay, this story comes up just a couple of days ago in the United States. The FBI in the U.S. facilitated social media takedown requests made by Ukrainian spy agency SBU. Let's take a look at this. They colluded with Ukrainian intelligence to pressure social media companies, all the ones we know and love, Facebook, Twitter, Google, YouTube, into taking down accounts accused of, quote, spreading Russian disinformation. Sound familiar? Sure. Some of which belong to Americans. A House committee says, I will be asking for this list myself. And so here is the report here from this congressional review. And let's take a look at how the system works. Here's how it works. We're calling this the FBI-SBU Doxing and Censorship Operation against American citizens. So it starts off here, and they're saying they infiltrate, according to this, FSB, SBU, takedown request. So the Americans are somehow trying to put the Russians in the frame here for some reason. But anyway, it's Ukrainian intelligence telling the FBI, here's the blacklists, the FBI going to Facebook, Instagram, Google, and social media and asking them to take these accounts down or take these tweets down. So this is an extension really of the Twitter files here. And it's even more shocking. The report is based on documents subpoenaed from Meta itself, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, and also Google and YouTube here. And what do they show? It alleges the FBI violated the First Amendment rights of Americans and undermined our national security. They tried to spin it as with a Russian connection as well, which Americans will always do. They'll try to add China and Russia into everything. But here's the facts. As part of the effort, the Ukrainian intelligence, SBU, transmitted lists of social media accounts to the FBI that it wanted to be banned, and the Bureau, in turn, routinely relayed these lists to the relevant social media platforms. So that expose on me and Kim.com, that would probably reflect these types of blacklists that are coming from Kiev and into the Silicon Valley here. Look at this. Listen to this. This shows you what a clown show this really is, Mike. The State Department's own Russian language Instagram account, USA Po-Ruski, was one of the authentic American accounts flagged for removal in a list composed by the SBU and transmitted to big tech companies by the FBI.
Fantastic.
So the FBI don't even know that this was a State Department account. This is what clown world really and truly looks like. These people don't know what they're doing. And let's point out what we showed on this program just a few weeks ago, Mike. So who's in charge of trust and safety at Facebook and Meta? Well, it's none other than former CIA agent Aaron Berman. And Facebook and Meta are crawling with spooks. Yeah. CIA agents, DHS, NSA, FBI, tons and tons of them, all working in community safety, censorship. All of these roles are staffed by intelligence. So they're getting primed from Ukraine and with instructions of who to ban. So what do we know about Google on this? We don't know anything yet. This hasn't come up. What's going on? So why can't we have videos on YouTube? Is this the reason? It could be.
Good question.
It would be good to know. Outrageous.
Okay, we just want to end this segment then, just very briefly with this. Reuters reporting today Ukraine has now received cluster munitions. But don't worry, Patrick, you don't have to worry because they're pledging limited use. They're only going to use them where they need to clear out Russians from certain areas. They're not going to be widespread use, so you don't need to worry at all about it. Of course, you do need to worry because these things hang around for decades, in some cases, are still blowing the feet and legs off children in certain parts of the world decades after their use. I just want to highlight the Russian attitude to this. This is Valentina Matvienko, the Russian Federation Council chairwoman. The collective West and NATO aren't at all interested in resolving the conflict peacefully. On the contrary, they're interested in prolonging it and escalating the conflict. Increasing weapon supplies to Ukraine are yet more proof of that. She went on to say, and now a never before seen and criminal decision to provide Ukraine with cluster munitions has been made. If it happens, and it now has happened, I believe that would be a war crime. I think that's a fair enough comment. Now, let's quickly move on. If you'd like what the UK column does, you'd like to support us, please head over to community.ukcolumn.org and you can help us out there. Very much needed and appreciated. You could pick something up at the UK column shop, but please do share anything you find on the various platforms, especially ukcolumn.org and ukcolumnextracts.co.uk. We just want to highlight a couple of things that you could share. One is an interview with Isherwood on queer theory, the attack on the minds of our children. And also on yesterday, we put out this, an inquest denied, Matt Campbell demands 9/11 answers. He is now looking for a judicial review in order to bring about a further inquiry into the death of his brother in the North Tower on September 11th. And we're happy to support that, and I would encourage everybody else to support it as well.
And just a quick comment, Mike, on the cluster bombs, the previous story. I did some work on this issue when I was in Lebanon many years ago, and there are literally millions of locations where cluster bombs were dropped, bomblets, by the Israelis in South Lebanon. The IDF will not share the battlefield maps that shows where they've all been dropped, but there are a number of these no-go sites in southern Lebanon. Children have been killed. They look like toys as well, some of the unexploded bomblets, so hugely dangerous. They continue to be a problem 10, 15, 20 years after the fighting has ended.
Yes.
So that's the danger that's involved here when you're talking about cluster munitions. And them talking about these as wonder weapons, like this is going to turn the tide and help the Ukrainians in their counteroffensive. This is just so crass and craven. What's the language and the rhetoric that's coming out of the West now, it is just really incredible.
Despicable.
It is.